Welcome to Fantastical Tales. This is a place to enjoy the glory of story. Folk tales, fairy lore, gothic horror, and the wonderfully weird. Thank you for joining me. There once was a pious clergyman who was returning home after giving consolation to a dying member of his flock. It was late of night, and he had to pass through a good deal of uncanny and eerie land. On reaching the end of a lake which stretched along the roadside for some distance, he was surprised to hear the strains of music. Overcome by pleasure and curiosity, the minister coolly sat down to listen to the harmonious sounds and try what new discoveries he could make with regard to their nature and source. He had not sat long before he could distinguish the approach of the music and also observe a light in the direction from whence it proceeded, gliding across the lake towards him. Instead of taking to his heels, as most of us would have done, this pastor fearlessly determined to await the issue of the phenomenon. As the light and music drew near, he could distinguish an object resembling a human being walking on the surface of the water and attended by a group of diminutive beings, some of them bearing lights and others instruments of music from which issued those melodious strains which had first attracted his attention. The leader of the band dismissed his attendants and walked onto the beach. This afforded the minister the opportunity of examining his appearance. He was a little, primitive-looking, gray-headed man, clad in the most grotesque clothes the minister had ever seen, which raised suspicion as to his real nature. He walked up to the minister, whom he saluted with great grace and deference, offering an apology for his intrusion. The pastor returned his compliments and, without further explanation, invited this mysterious stranger to sit down by his side. The invitation was accepted, upon which the minister proposed the following question. "Who art thou, stranger, and from whence?" To this question the mysterious being with a downcast eye replied,
"I am one of the Denashi. I was once an angel and dwelt in indescribable joy in the regions of light. But I was seduced by Satan to join in his conspiracy, though I did not fully consent. And as punishment for my transgression was cast down from those regions of bliss, and am now trapped between heaven and hell, along with millions of my fellows, to wander through sea and mountain until the coming of the great day. I do not know what my fate will be then, and I have come here to ask you your opinion as to our final condition on that dreadful day."
The pastor then entered upon a long conversation with the fairy, touching on the principles of faith and repentance, but receiving rather unsatisfactory answers to his questions. The minister desired that she to repeat after him the Pater Noster, that is, the Lord's Prayer. But in attempting to do so, it was quite remarkable that he could not repeat the word art, but instead said wert in heaven. inferring from every circumstance that their fate was extremely precarious. The minister resolved not to puff the fairies up with presumptuous and perhaps groundless expectations. Accordingly, addressing himself to the unhappy fairy, who was all in anxiety to know the nature of his sentiments, the gentleman told him that he could not take it upon him to give them any hope of pardon, as their crime was of so deep a hue. On this, the unhappy fairy uttered a shriek of despair and plunged headlong into the loch. The minister arose and resumed his journey. Thank you for listening. This has been my adaptation of a story which appeared in the Folklore and Legends of Scotland, published in 1889 by W. W. Gibbings. And the Folklore and Legends of Scotland is not the most useful source from a folklore perspective, in that it has no information about the stories. Who collected them? From where? From whom? When? Were they completely made up? I don't know. But this story deals with a question, and the question is, what are the Faerie, or the She, or the Fae, whichever name you know them by? And in the traditions which exist, there are different answers to that question, but one of the answers is that they are half-fallen angels. So there's a bit of a grayness, a gray area around the nature of their being. They're not quite damned, at least not yet. They're not angelic. And whether or not they're good or evil is an open question. Whether or not they will be redeemed or are redeemable is also an open question, and obviously the subject of this story. So thank you again for listening, and I hope to tell you another story soon.